Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Joe, and welcome back to another Maps video. So today I wanted to make a video going over 5 legitimately shocking facts about US geography. So the first fact that I want to go over is what I have in the title, which is that California is north of Canada, or at least part of it. So what we're going to use to be able to tell this is the handy latitude and longitude feature within Google Maps. So if we just right-click any location, like St. Louis for example, it'll give us the latitude and longitude of that location. Latitude, which is our first number, is going to tell us north or south. As you go further north, your latitude is going to increase, and as you go further south, it's going to decrease. For longitude, which tells you east or west, that second number, as you go further east, your longitude is going to increase. You see we went from negative 120 to about negative 77 right there. So let's take a look at this Canada-California thing. If you go to the most southern part of Canada, Pelee Island, if you click on any part of that island, right-click, we'll see the latitude is about 41.76. We'll round it to 41.75. Now, if we go across to California and pick a very northern part of California, say right by the border of Oregon, we'll see that we're pretty much exactly at 42 for our latitude, which means that we are, in fact, north of Canada. And this is actually true for part of the mainland as well, not just this Pelee Island, but if we even go here to Point Pelee National Park, we'll see that this is also further south of part of California. So if you ever wanted to go south from California to Canada, now you know that that is something that you can do, something that sounds really interesting. Now the second fact is also going to be using this feature within Google Maps, and that's that Atlanta is further west than Detroit. Now this is something that you can kind of tell if you're looking at the map like this right now, but it's probably not clear to you because Atlanta is obviously in Georgia, which is a state bordering the Atlantic Ocean, and then Detroit is definitely not bordering the Atlantic Ocean. So this is just something that's really not intuitive. But again, if we're going to check this out, the longitude of Atlanta is about negative 84.4. And then if we go up to Detroit, we see negative 83 right about. So it's actually a fair amount different. Detroit is pretty much a lot further east than Atlanta. I think that's a pretty fun fact and something that is really not intuitive. So going on to this, to our third fact, we'll hop over to this tab, where we're going to Carowinds, which is an amusement park, roller coaster park, on the border, literally on the border, of North Carolina and South Carolina. I'm really into roller coasters. I would love to come here at some point. Really great coasters here, I've heard. But it literally crosses the border within the two states. And in fact, there are even some rides that cross state borders. So for example, if you go on the Nighthawk roller coaster, the station is mostly in South Carolina, but part of the ride stretches into North Carolina, which I think is something that's really interesting, and I think it's pretty cool how you can go on a roller coaster across state lines. I think that is super fun, and I would love to be able to do that myself one day. So I think that's a really cool little fact. The next cool little fact that I have is this library right on the border of the United States. This is in Vermont, the Haskell Free Library and Opera House, right on the border of Canada and the United States. But what you're going to see if you're zooming in here is that this library is actually split between the countries. Part of it's in Canada and part of it's in the United States. And you'll see that this in quite a few towns across the border of US and Canada. Obviously, these are very friendly countries, so they share stuff sometimes. But in this case, obviously with the pandemic and having a lot of cross-border restrictions that weren't there previously, it opens up the question of who can go in this library, because it's technically part of both countries. But as you're going to see, if you go right here, the actual entrance to this library is in Vermont. There is no entrance from the Canadian side. If we go up to this more northern point across the border, there is no entrance without crossing over the international border into Vermont. So if you're going into this library from somebody in the United States, there is no kind of customs or border control or anything like that, because the only way to get back out is to go back into the United States. You can't go cross the border within this library, however cool that might be. So this is really just more of a fun thing than some kind of actual geopolitical thing. But I think it's kind of cool, and these kind of things makes it really interesting, that we have borders that's very friendly, but when you can't cross the border, like for example with the pandemic, how do you handle it? And there were some situations which was a lot more complex in this. Like for example, there's streets that perfectly cross the border between the US and Canada. And that would be a whole other video that I could make a really cool topic about at another point. But this is a particularly interesting case that I thought would be a good little case study. And if I go actually into the like satellite view, you'll see that there's a lawn that actually does go across the border. So even though you can only get in from the US side, from this car parking here, there's nothing stopping them from driving into Canada across the grass. And somebody actually tried to do that during the pandemic from Canada to the US, crossed that border illegally because it was during COVID. It wouldn't be legal regardless because it's not some kind of official customs point, but that's besides the point. And that person got in trouble and they got sent back to Canada because of it. So fun little fact there, where a border is kind of weird and not super defined, even though it is defined because a library literally stretches across the border. So for the fifth fun fact I have has to do with airlines and hubs that airports have, which is another really interesting topic that I'd love to make a video about. And we're going to go to United Airlines and look at their hubs. A lot of these make sense. Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, Newark, San Francisco, and DC. If you've ever flown on United, chances are that you flew to or from one of those airports. That's how hubs within airlines work. But what people might not know is that Guam is actually considered one of United's official hubs. This is literally on United.com. And Guam is obviously nowhere close to anywhere else within the United States. Guam is significantly closer to China or Australia or Japan than it is even Hawaii, on obviously the mainland, continental United States, even further away than that. So why exactly is this a United hub? And the answer is basically just because when United took over airlines, back in the day, a lot of airline consolidation was going on, where the big three airlines nowadays of American, Delta, and United, they purchased a bunch of different other airlines. And when United bought another airline, they took the Guam hub from them. And this is actually a pretty useful thing as far as like cargo goes. It's really easy to have cargo shipped from the US to further into the east, or further into the west, like China or Japan or anything like that, because of Guam. But if you're a US citizen and you want to go to Guam, you still will need a passport in most situations. So even though this is a US territory, not a state, but this is a territory, you are probably going to need a passport if you go here. So that's an interesting thing. I'd love to make a video about airline hubs and how airlines work and all of that kind of stuff, since that's another topic that I find really interesting. So let me know if you'd be interested in that down below. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. This was fun for you to make. Hopefully it was just as fun for you to watch. And yeah, let me know what you think. I'm trying out a bunch of different kind of videos on this channel just to see what sticks. I'm enjoying making all these kinds of videos, but I really do want to make what you find the most entertaining. So yeah, leave your feedback if you got to this point in the video. I'd really appreciate hitting that like button, subscribing, whatever you can do to help out the channel, so I can reach more people and make videos that you all want me to make. So yeah, with that being said, thank you so much and have a good one. Peace out, everybody.